Hello, everyone, and welcome to another live segment of the Radical Democracy Show. I'm your host, Kamali Rose, and just wanted to, talk to you today about a recent clip that I saw from an incredibly important, uh, you know, person in the progressive media space. TYT is the largest, progressive network, on the left and in all of media. They have the a massive online presence, and they are on YouTube, they're on cable news, they're on radio. They have 5 million subscribers on YouTube. They have a massive platform. TYT is an incredibly important, regardless of how you feel about TYT. I know how folks that watch the show sort of generally are to the left of TYT. They are left. They are progressive. They are social democrats. They are. Cenk is a capitalist. All right. So I am to the left of Cenk Uygur. But Cenk Uygur is the main host and the founder, one of the main, the founders of TYT, this, massive left wing independent. They were independent at one point, but I don't know that we can really call them independent any longer. They've sort of outgrown that label, but they are a something that grew out of independent media, and now they are a massive platform. And there are people under their umbrella: Majority Report, the Michael Brooks Show. I don't know if the Michael Brooks Show is technically under their umbrella, but the Majority Report was under their umbrella. Kyle Kalinske of Secular Talk, he's under their umbrella. So that David Pakman used to be a part of that network. So Cenk Uygur is this is an important figure in important platforms, regardless of how you might feel about them. And he, unfortunately, during Force the Vote, for anyone, most of the folks that are in here, y'all know what Force the Vote was all about. That was the strategy we sought to employ. I supported, and folks like myself, urged members of Congress to use the power that they had on the January 3rd vote for the speakership in the House of Representatives. Nancy Pelosi was nominated for the speakership, and we were demanding that progressives in Congress use their vote to withhold their vote for Nancy Pelosi in exchange, and demand in exchange at a bare minimum a floor vote for Medicare for all. This is in the middle of a pandemic and mass unemployment that saw tens of millions of Americans fired from or laid off from their jobs and kicked off of their health insurance, all right, in the middle of a pandemic. And we were just demanding a floor vote on Medicare for all at the very least. And honestly, I was supportive of David Sirota's strategy of demanding even more than that. Some of the other, substantive gains that we could have made that could have pushed us more, something that would have demanded that Joe Biden use his authority in his executive authority to implement a provision of the Affordable Care Act that would actually allow him to essentially enact Medicare for all in any region of the United States that is undergoing a public health crisis. So we were trying to get them to push for, at the very least, a vote on Medicare for all. This would have required hearings to happen. It would have got a lot of publicity, the same way that Donald Trump's impeachment trial gets all that publicity and news coverage, right? Something like this would get massive news coverage, and then ultimately would hold people accountable, put them on the record voting for or against universal health care in the middle of a pandemic, which obviously has a lot of value to use for people to the left of those candidates running in midterm elections, right? And would stand to benefit progressives as well. And so we didn't see a downside to it. And we at the time, and I can play video of myself from back at the time, but we said, and I was on record saying that this was a a once in a lifetime opportunity, and we needed to flex our power in as progressives, and to see the progressive wing of the Democratic Party use their power in a substantive way. Because if they couldn't use their power there, it was in a clear indicator that they weren't going to be able to use their power in any situation, essentially. And I think that Cenk Uygur is now finally catching up to that reality. And so he launched a video last night, and I'll play a few clips from the video. This is just, him personally talking, and it seems like he's just sort of, just speaking his mind here. And he finally seems to be coming around on these, and saying, unfortunately, he's saying the same things that we were saying back then for Force the Vote. He's saying these same things now in regard to the $15 minimum wage situation that's going on, and the failure of the progressive movement to ensure that we secure a $15 minimum wage as part of this upcoming COVID relief bill. So let's take a look and a listen to Cenk here. And this is, I'll play again. I got a few clips I want to play here, so we'll flip through and see. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. So here we go. I'm going to burn my bridges. I got to tell you what's the reality about progressives in Congress. So let me be clear. They do not have bad intent. They all mean well. They all want the $15 minimum wage passed. They want Medicare for all passed. They want Green New Deal passed. They want all of that. Okay. They're good people. But tonight they'll meet. And they will very, 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 very likely decide to do nothing about putting $15 minimum wage back into the COVID relief bill. And that means we will lose on $15 minimum wage. But it also means, and this is the most disheartening part, and this is why I'm doing this video and telling you guys, that means we will lose from here on out. You must be able to block a must-pass bill if you are to have power. Honestly, it's just basic politics. It's not that complicated. It's not some brilliant strategy. Why does Joe Manchin get everything he wants? Why is he, like, now people are wondering, is he the president? He took out $15 minimum wage almost single-handedly from this bill. Why? He said, I won't vote for the bill if it's in it. That's how you do politics. And people might find that uncomfortable. And if you're a good progressive and a good person, you might say, well, that endangers people a little bit and it delays the bill a little bit, and he shouldn't do that. Okay, yes, but it does lead to power. It does lead to a seat at the negotiating table. If you're not willing to block a bill, you have no power at all. And that is current state of play. So
all right. So that is, Cenk essentially, he said, I think an important quote from that is that he said, that means that, because of what, essentially what's happened here is that the Democrats have folded on the $15 minimum wage. We've covered this on the show. We covered this on the show last night in depth. And so, there is a clear opportunity for Democrats to pass $15 minimum wage in this country. It would have a massive impact on, over 30 million workers would get a pay raise from an increase to a $15 minimum wage. It increases the $15 minimum wage over the course of the next 5 years, all the way until 2025. I mean, honestly, the fight for a $15 minimum wage started in 2012. Now we're here in 2021, 9 years later, still talking about a $15 minimum wage, which is just goofy, if you ask me. We should be talking about at least a $20 or $25 minimum wage right now by this point, if we're talking about actual dignified, a dignified living wage instead of just survival wages, right? $15 minimum wage, that gets you just above the poverty line, all right? Working full time, all right? So that gets you right above the poverty line at $15 minimum wage, all right? So that these are survival wages, let's be real. And, he's saying because the Democrats have essentially voted, and this is a few people, a handful of people specifically, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, they have all the power right now to include $15 minimum wage in this bill. It's the bill. The $15 minimum wage was included in the House bill. It went over to the Senate. The Senate now, is stripping that out and taking out that provision, and then we'll send it back to the House, and then the House will have to vote on that again. And so the question is, are the if they strip this out, and the reason that they would strip this out is not because no Republican is going to vote for this bill. All right, this is going to only Democrats are going to vote for this bill. The only way to pass this bill is through a process called budget reconciliation that will overrule the filibuster, prevent Republicans from being able to use the filibuster, and will allow a simple majority vote on the COVID this COVID relief bill. And so they can pass it with 50 votes that they have, plus Kamala Harris as the tie-breaking vote. And they have a Senate parliamentarian that's this bureaucratic, unelected position that they gave some advice, and historically presidents have ignored the advice of the Senate parliamentarian routinely, Hubert Humphrey, and they also Republicans back in the early 2000s, and I think it was 2001 or around sometime between 2001 2004, they dismissed a Senate parliamentarian at the time because they didn't like the rulings that he was giving. So there's plenty of precedent in historical precedent for people to ignore the advice of the Senate parliamentarian. There's also a maneuver that they can do where the Kamala Harris, who is the I forget the name of the position. I keep on forgetting. I call it the president of the Senate, but presiding officer of the Senate. So she's the presiding officer over the Senate, and she has the authority to overrule the advice of the Senate parliamentarian. So Kamala Harris alone, who claims to support a $15 minimum wage, could simply, overrule this. And they're claiming that they're not willing to do this because Joe Manchin, a blue dog, conservative Democrat from West Virginia, is threatening to block the bill, to hold up his vote and to vote no against this bill if they include a $15 minimum wage hike, even though a $15 minimum wage in West Virginia, where he's from, is a wildly popular policy. All right. So it has more than majority support in West Virginia. So this is a popular policy there in West Virginia, and he's simply ignoring the will of his constituents, and because he's paid to by his donors to ignore those the pain of the people. And so he's saying that he's going to vote no if they include a $15 minimum wage. Now the question is, is there any block of people in Congress, is there a block of progressives in Congress willing to say, if you don't include a $15 minimum wage, we're going to block the bill? All right. So we will hold our vote. We'll withhold our vote. We'll vote no. All right. So we're going to force the vote, right? We're going to withhold our votes, right? Which is what we were asking people to do in the case of Nancy Pelosi. And we knew that was a truly a once in a lifetime opportunity to advance the Medicare for all. And now you have Cenk saying, if he said that means we will lose on $15 minimum wage, but it also means we will lose from here on out. All right. So he's saying here that it's not just that this isn't just about them getting this one victory here. And this is what the same argument I was making back in December and January about force the vote. I said, this isn't just about this moment. This is about proving to people and giving the movement hope, continued hope, that there's a reason to continue to fight for these people, to get these people elected. And it's because, you have to show us that you're willing to use your power in moments like that and in moments like this, or else if you won't use it then in these moments where you actually have it, what the heck do you think you're ever going to do when you don't wield that power? And come on, these opportunities of a democratically controlled Congress, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and the White House, that stuff only comes around once a decade if you're lucky. Like the last time that happened was under Obama in 2000 and what was it, 2010 to 2012, is it or was it was it 2008 to 2010? I'm spacing right now, but this stuff is a once in a lifetime opportunity, right? And if they're not willing to take advantage of it, it was clear as day to me back then after Forced to Vote. I became extremely disheartened and discouraged because of it. So I'll play a couple more clips. And he also said, if you're not willing to block a bill, you have no power at all. All right. So he said, that's what we were saying. If you're not willing to block the Speaker of the House, and there was no risk, let me reiterate, with the Nancy Pelosi move, it wasn't like we were risking a Republican. Just like he said, there's no real risk to happen here. The risk is, okay, we're going to delay the bill a little bit, right? This will delay the bill a little bit, but there's a much bigger risk. And so many economists, even centrist economists, have come out and said the real danger with this COVID relief bill is not doing enough. The danger isn't doing too much. But listen to these people, how they sit around and debate how to nickel and dime people to give them the absolute least. All right, the absolute least. All right, and so it's unfortunate, but I want to give, I do want to give Jane credit, because credit where credit is due. At least he's coming around on it now. Like, I wish he would have came around on it sooner. I really do, because we missed a critical moment, but at least him with his massive platform and 5 million followers, TYT has massive power on the left, and this is a good thing. And we should, carrots and sticks, like, deserves a carrot for this effort, because at least you come around now and you're actually saying the right things, in risking some of your access to these politicians essentially along the way. So let me play a couple more clips, and then we'll keep chatting.
Manchin goes, okay, the House version, the Democratic version of the bill.
Sorry, that's on double speed.
I will vote no, so you must do what I tell you, okay? That is when progressives must do the equal and opposite. I'm going to call it the Manchin rule. Okay, you vote no, we vote no. You vote yes, we vote yes. Then it's on you, brother. Then it's on you. Instead, they're likely going to choose to do nothing. Now, I could even live with that. You're going to say, Cenk, how could you live with that? If they had a good plan to somehow get the $15 minimum wage passed in another way. So if they said, hey, Cenk, look, there's a bunch of senators that are reluctant, and here is our battle plan for flipping them. Great, I'm all ears. I'm going to tell you guys to get excited. I'm going to tell you guys to be part of that plan, and I'm going to give credit to all the people who came up with that great plan, and let's go execute it together. If they say, hey, we're not going to block this one, we're going to block the other one, and it's not maybe and it's not vague, it's definite, and okay, then that's a totally fine plan. And waiting an extra 8-9 months for one of those other bills to come up sounds awful to me, but I might even be willing to do that if you were actually going to do it. So, and as things stand now, they're not going to. The progressives in Congress will not vote no. They will not vote no on this one, but I'm afraid they're not going to vote no on any of them. If you don't use your power, we're never going to get these bills passed. You know how hopeful I am if you ever watch The Young Turks. And I was hopeful and optimistic about this one. And in fact, we got some of the way there, all of us together, right? And so if you got a good plan, I swear to God, we're going to go guns blazing all together on it. But you can't tell us that you're not going to put the minimum wage on this. You're not going to vote no. You're not going to block the bill. And again, blocking the bill is not actually blocking the bill. They must renegotiate. They must renegotiate. And at that point, they have to listen to you. Right now, you're telling them they don't have to listen to you. Don't worry about it. Only listen to Manchin. And that's exactly what's happening. Exactly what's happening. And by the way, if you're going to tell me your plan is, don't worry, Nancy Pelosi's on our side and she'll do it later. Okay, on that one, I'll be super clear. That is not the correct answer. Nancy Pelosi's nowhere near on your side. Neither is Chuck Schumer. I've seen them play this shell game 1,000 times over. Neither is Joe Biden. Neither is Kamala Harris. The guys that are the most gullible. I'm sorry, but I mean folks that are like regular voters, et cetera. But sometimes it happens with legislators too. Actually, A shocking number of times it happens with legislators. Oh, no, Schumer said he was interested. He wants to do the minimum wage. Who cares what he said? What did he do? I mean, right now they could put it in the bill. Right now they could put it in the bill. And they could say Manchin and Sinema. No, the answer is no. Now we're going to negotiate. We're going to negotiate, right? Instead, what all of them are saying is, no, we're not going to negotiate. We're just going to give Manchin whatever he wants. No, we can't have it. If you got a plan, I'm 1,000,000,000% in. But if you can't win and you choose not to fight, and then you don't have a plan on top, no, I'm all the way out. So, and look, guys, my job is to do the news and be honest with you guys. And right now, I don't see any plan at all. And so,
all right. So, yeah. So, there he is saying, if you don't use your power, we're never going to get these bills passed. Said he could live with the non-action if there was an actual plan behind it, but there's clearly no plan behind it. There's no plan B here. There's no other plan. Again, the same arguments that I was making about forced vote. And I'm honestly, I'll play some clips of me talking about this, and you tell me, if I wasn't saying the same exact thing. And he says, if you got a plan, I'm 1,000,000,000% in. But if you can't win and you choose not to fight, and then you don't have a plan on top of that, I'm all the way out, right? So like, and that's what we were saying back then, was just like, what is your plan? If your plan is, okay, well, $15, sorry, but forcing a vote on Medicare for all, which again wasn't the only strategy. If I saw a comment that suggested as if I was saying that forcing the vote was the only part of the strategy. No, sorry, that was not the only part of the strategy. And we on this show were very clear about that from the outset, from back then, that we were pushing for more than just forcing a floor vote for Medicare for all. We were talking about getting a House resolution passed to get Biden to agree to use his executive authority to essentially enact Medicare for all now. So don't tell me about, how forcing the vote isn't, we popped the comment up before. So if you want to pop that back up again, you can't tell me about how force the vote is not it wasn't some substantive gain. Okay, so Marco Antonio says forcing a vote on Medicare for all wouldn't accomplish anything, while $15 is something that was guaranteed and has support in the Senate. Listen, this is just you're wrong. You're just keep that up. You're just wrong, right? So the force the vote, getting the vote on Medicare for all absolutely does something. One, are you telling me that with a democratically controlled House of Representatives and Senate, in the middle of a pandemic, people were going to vote no on universal health care? You show me who is the politician that can maintain power, can maintain their seat after voting no, a Democratic politician. I'm sorry, but if they exist, if there are Democrats that would vote no on Medicare for all in the middle of a pandemic, I'm sorry, but they need to be put on the record and called out. And don't tell me about co-sponsors, all right? Because co-sponsors to a bill mean absolutely nothing. Kamala Harris co-sponsored Medicare for all. Kamala Harris tweeted out saying how she supports $15 minimum wage. What people say and what they do is entirely different, all right? Tell me about people's actions, their actions, all right? What actions have they taken, all right? So to say it wouldn't accomplish anything, one, forcing the vote wasn't the only thing that we were pushing for. We were pushing for more than just forcing the vote. We said force the vote, and also on top of that, you should demand more, because you can't just go in there with one demand, because then they're going to try to whittle you down from that and weaken that. So you got to go in there with the whole list of demands and try to negotiate from a position of strength. And so we said, not just that, but also the House resolution, again, demanding. David Sirota did a great piece in Jacobin where he laid out 5 things that progressives could substantively push for by withholding their vote for Nancy Pelosi. And one of the key things in that was to use a provision in the Affordable Care Act that enables Joe Biden in any region of the United States that is experiencing a public health crisis, which every single region of the United States is experiencing under this pandemic, that he can essentially give states the authority to enact Medicare for all in that region to provide universal health care. So do not tell me that it wouldn't accomplish anything, all right? No, we were telling you what it would accomplish at the time, and it would have accomplished plenty, all right? And so both of these things mattered. And I'm sorry, but I don't even know how you can make that argument when we were proven right, because look at what I said then is bearing itself out again. All right. It's just that Cenk is late to the party. All right. So I'm giving Cenk credit, and I'm trying to be nuanced, as you said, Marco Antonio. I'm trying to be nuanced, but I'm not going to, give credit where it isn't due. All right. And definitely credit to the folks that were on the right side of history. And I'm sorry, we were clearly on the right side of history, because we said back then, I'm going to show you clips of myself, saying the same things that Cenk is saying now, me saying it, months ago when we were talking about forcing the vote, and predicting all of what is coming to pass right now, that if they weren't willing to use their power then, they weren't going to be able to use their power now. That when it was clear as day that what was any different about that opportunity. And I'm sorry, but it absolutely was substantive, and there was plenty we could have accomplished, and we accomplished. What we're guaranteed to accomplish nothing by doing nothing. That's how you're guaranteed to accomplish nothing. Next clip that I'll play here. Let me play one more clip of Cenk here. I'll play two clips. This one is a little. Okay. Corey Saylor says, at Marco Antonio, I'll push back on Medicare for all, a vote accomplishing nothing. It would have forced members of the House to be on the record against Medicare for all, and that is ammo to primary them. Exactly, Corey. And that was the point that I was trying to make about, how it can be used against them by progressives that would run against them, in primaries and to beat them. So absolutely agree with you, Corey, that is important, and that is valuable. If we're really trying to advance Medicare for all, we need to take steps to get closer. Nothing that we did brought us closer to that, any closer than we already would have been getting naturally, right? And so that's what we're talking about, is pushing it forward somehow. And they did nothing to accomplish it then. And really what they showed me then, and why I got so discouraged back then, was because it was a signal to me and a clear indicator that they didn't understand how to wield power as a block of progressives that we fought to get elected. These are people who I supported from the outset of their campaigns. I joined Justice Democrats the day that it launched. I was one of the first 300 donors to AOC's campaign. Like, I supported these people while I was unemployed, like gave them tons of money, volunteered for them. Like, I'm upset that I was directing people down this path that seems to be the wrong path, and so I'm frustrated by that. And so that's the point that that I'm trying to make here. So let me play another clip here of Cenk. Let me see if I want to. All right, yes, I'll do this next one. Sorry. All right.
Not one of them. Okay, now let's go to the House.
Sorry, double speed again. This is how I gotta research stuff. Sorry, sloppy.
What did the progressives in the House have anything to do with this? It's a Senate issue. No, the House can easily block the bill because the Senate amends it. They send it back over to the House. The House has to vote again. Now, how many do you need in the House? Just 6. You just need 6 progressive Democrats to say no. We're not going to agree to never do the minimum wage. And look, I'll challenge them too. And so this is why I say it's burning the bridges. Because when you're out of power, then you're on the Young Turks and you're looking for, volunteers and donors. I'm keeping it real. And I don't begrudge that at all. I love that, right? Because I want our audience empowered. I want you to be able to effectuate change. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get you positive change in the world. And we promised you these bills. We promised you minimum wage. We promised you Medicare for all. We promised you Green New Deal, college for all. And now to turn around. But when people get in power and you criticize them like I'm doing now, even if it's in the most constructive way, even if it's in a loving way, saying, I know you've got good intent, but you've got to show me a plan for actual success. They say, oh, no, that's it. That's it. You burnt your bridges. You're not allowed to criticize anyone in power. No problem. Because I don't work for them. I work for you guys. I do. I literally work for you guys. You guys do the membership stuff and all the other stuff. I'm not going to let you down. My job is to tell you the truth. If it turns out they had a plan, I tell you guys, cool it, cool it, cool it. Trust me, okay? We're going to get this done, and we're going to be strategic about it, right? But if you tell me, no, I'm not going to do it, and I don't have a plan, or I have pie in the sky where Pelosi and Schumer magically wind up being on our side, and then even if they were, what would they do? If $15 minimum wage cannot pass as a standalone bill, it will get filibustered. It must be in a must-pass bill, and you must be able to block that bill if you want the power and you want it to pass. So if they continue on this path, and that's why I'm doing this video, even though it's going to cost me all my relationships, is because I've got to tell you, apparently I think I have to tell them, and they'll be so offended. They'll be so offended. How dare you tell us what reality is? But guys, you tell me. So that's why I'm saying let me challenge them, but in a good way, right? At least I think it is, but I'm sure they'll be deeply, deeply, deeply offended, right? Tell us what your plan is. And you know, I don't know if you could tell the groups and the progressive groups, and it's a secret and et cetera, but tell somebody, because right now, that's what I've asked everyone on planet Earth. There is no plan B. Well, if there's no plan B, then I'm not going to come out here and tell you guys that it's going to be okay. My optimism is rooted in reality. We have done 1,000 things together. The audience and us, okay, 1,000 things. I honestly think we've created some miracles together. But in order to do that, you can't just wish it into existence, and you can't just have good intent and go, cross fingers, right? No, you have to have a plan for taking power and using it on behalf of your voters, on behalf of the people that you made those promises to. So if they got a plan or they got anything that they're going to do, oh, I would be ecstatic if I was wrong. I would be jubilant if I was wrong. I would be so happy. I would look like the Cenk that you saw on the night that they all won their elections. When they won their elections, you saw me jumping through the roof. And why did you see that? Because I thought we were going to get this stuff done. And if now they turn around and they join the "there's nothing we can do" crew, no, I'm out and you should be out.
Look, I mean, I don't know. That's literally the co-founder of original co-founder of Justice Democrats. All right, the people who got Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and helped Cory Bush out and Jamal Bowman and Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley and got these folks elected, and I was a member of that. I was right along for that ride. I did everything that I could and to try to to bring these people into power, and with the expectation that when they got there, that they would do something with that power, something for the people, right? And that they wouldn't get lost in the machine, right? But I said it then, and I'll say it again, that I think that my fear is that this is what we talk about when we talk about systemic problems, right? In a system, it's not about the individuals that you happen to throw into the system. That's not what changes the system, right? You have to, fundamentally rebuild structures, right? You have to rebuild institutions. You have to build new institutions in the place of crumbling ones, right? And build new institutions and infrastructure in the wake of that. But you can't, it's not through, adding some new individuals into the same broken system, right? Because the system is the problem. And this system, this machine of our two-party duopoly, the corporate, the way that essentially we have legalized bribery in our politics, the money in politics, that the corrupting influence of money in politics and dark money in particular, these are all problems. But there's also just the structures of the Senate itself. we don't even get to the point. People are so politically disconnected. We don't even get to the point of talking about the fact, like, does a Senate make sense? Why do we have this second body that is less democratic, right? Because the senators, if you're a senator from a really small state, one senator represents far fewer people, right? It's like one senator to a few, to a few 100,000 people, or a million people, versus in California, you have two senators for like, 20 million people, versus in like, North Dakota, you got, two senators or in Rhode Island, or, Massachusetts, even where I am, in these smaller states, we have outsized power in the Senate, right? The smaller the state, the more, the less populous the state, the more outsized power each voter has in the Senate. And it's undemocratic, and then we got to pass laws through these two different bodies. That doesn't exist in other systems, and we just take it for granted, and we don't even question those things. But those institutions are so ingrained in just the rules, and all these rules and procedures and let's not let them get away with hiding behind excuses of procedure most of the time, because there's ways to get around these procedures and to work your way around that. And Donald Trump showed how to do that constantly, right? So they can absolutely do it if they have the willpower to. They just simply don't, for some of these politicians. But for the others, in the way that the establishment is ingrained in there, and that sort of groupthink and Washington think is ingrained in these people, it slowly just starts to, as it grinds people up. When you put them into the machine, it just kind of grinds people up over time. And you can put well-intentioned people in there. Like Cenk is saying, these people were well-intentioned. I said it back then. AOC, it's not that she has bad intentions or the squad has bad intentions. It's that the system itself is corrupt. And the only way that we're ever going to change anything is by changing the system. And what's the system? The system is capitalism. And the fundamental change that we need to make is to make, to build, because the problem with capitalism is it's inherently undemocratic, unstable, and unequal, right? And so we don't, if you don't want that to continue, then you need to build new structures in this place. That's why we talk about workplace democracy in all of our institutions. We just need to expand democracy from our political system into our economic system, and that means in our housing, in our workplaces, in our food, in our communications. We need more democracy in these institutions. And until we have that, we're going to continue to see the same problems, no matter who we get into that system. You can put any one of us that are talking all the stuff that we're talking right now. If we go into that system, if you put me into that system, as two things happen. Either people like us can't get to that point. All right. The system naturally weeds out people that are, the Cornell Wests of the world, the radical truth tellers of the world. Like, they can't even, they don't even fit in the system. The system will not, help, will not lift those people up, will not elevate those people to the top. It incentivizes people that are, the sort of centrist, status quo, the people that are going to uphold the status quo, and it incentivizes that. And so, for one, if most of us that are like this, we don't even have a chance to get to that point, right? But the reality is, I honestly believe, even if you get to that point, the system is so, thoroughly corrupted at this stage that well-intentioned people, unfortunately, end up, becoming just another cog in this machine, unfortunately. And we end up with more of the same. And that's the end result, is incrementalism. Sorry, you got to wait for a better season, like MLK said. And they're always telling you when, that the next season is, it's always some other season, some other time that we're going to have to have the real fight. And so it's unfortunate that people got lost in the sauce on this argument. I mean, I feel weird playing clips of myself. I feel kind of weird about it. But I do got some clips from me talking about this issue back when it was going on, right? And so let me just show you what I was saying back then, and how it compares to what Cenk was saying. All right, so this is if this is weird, let me know in the comments if this is weird. Me playing clips of myself, it feels weird. I'll tell you that much. I see people talking about Jimmy Dore. Jimmy Dore does this all the time, playing clips of his own show. I am not a Jimmy Dore fan. And we all know that. You can watch any of my content on Jimmy Dore to see how I feel about Jimmy Dore. But I still supported the Force the Vote movement, adamantly so, because I care about policy, not personalities. So here's me calling out. So this is me calling out TYT and Sam Cedar, Nomiki Konst, and then talking. If I let the clip run through, it's a little bit about my personal sort of story about this, and just me sort of starting to question electoral politics really as a viable and priority strategy in any way. All right, so here's the clip. All right. We used to talk about these issues like there was, and this clip is kind of long. So I am going to let this clip run at 2x speed. So I'm going to let this clip is like, I got like 5 minutes of this clip that I want to play. So instead of letting this play out for 5 minutes, we'll cut that time in half and I'm just going to let this play at 2x speed. All right. So this is me. I already talk fast, but this is going to be me talking pretty fast. So here you go. When I joined into this movement, and I joined into this movement because it resonated with me when we spoke about these issues and we said, what do we want? Medicare for all. When do we want it? Right now, right? And we demanded that it be right now, and that we were done waiting, right? We were done with the incrementalism and the waiting on a better time, waiting for a better season. We were done with that, and that the moment was now, and that we were going to fight for this, because we were facing existential crises. Existential, meaning threatening our ability to continue to exist. Okay, that's what these crises that we're saying. We're saying these are existential crises. But then the same people that have had this rhetoric and that I considered allies, and honestly, this has been very discouraging for me. I've become very discouraged and very, it's been very disheartening, demoralizing, discouraging to see the lack of urgency on the left from people that I consider allies on the left, from folks that I, held in high regard. I won't say looked up to, but held in high regard. Peers in independent progressive media, the TYTs and the Sam Cedar and Nomiki Konst and Nomiki Konst, and folks that I really did consider allies in this that have just completely taken a backseat and said, oh no, the time isn't now. Oh, this is all performative. This is just all performative. Nothing's gonna come of this. This has no value to us. And all of a sudden, these same people that have been fighting, that I've been fighting side by side with, who we've been saying this whole time, that they've been having the urgency of now. And I'm starting to get the feeling that, like, for me, I don't know. I try not to make it like personal and try not to personalize this, but I think I'm gonna have to personalize some of this tonight because, I'm unemployed. I'm unemployed because I've spoken out and I've gotten, I put my own career at risk speaking out on these issues because I thought that they mattered and I thought that everybody else had the same sense of urgency that I did and that it was worth taking these massive risks. I had a six-figure job. I had 6-figure jobs that I turned my back on, that I left, that I was pushed out of because I spoke out and spoke up against what I considered, injustice in the workplace, in capitalism, the injustices of capitalism. And I as a Black American, just already got the whole damn system set up against you. And I still go and I feel like what I did, set my neck out there to try to, because I believe that this was the right thing to do and that this was the fight to fight in. And now those same people that I believed in are telling me that, oh no, now's not the time, are willing to, as Brianna Joy Gray points out, extend the timeline, not just by years, but potentially by decades. If you don't recognize this moment and the importance and just once in a lifetime nature of this moment, then you are seriously missing. You are missing something. You're missing something very important. And I just urge you to please reconsider. If you are not totally behind the movement to force the vote for Medicare for all, and I believe that we need to demand more than that. I believe in at least that plus the list of demands laid out by David Sirota and his Jacobin article. I've gone over it multiple times on the show now, but I believe we need to demand more. We should demand, we should have gotten rid of PAYGO entirely with this. We could get rid of PAYGO. That's foolish and people don't support it. But come on, we're not even willing to have the politicians to fight to get the politicians to go on record to just do their damn jobs. There are literally 535 people in this entire fucking country that have the ability, whose job it is to just simply vote on issues that matter. That's your fucking job, okay? That's their fucking job in Congress. And they're supposed to vote on issues that matter. And they're literally, with a Democratic controlled House, we have a policy that has 88% support in recent polls over the summer, all right? Done by like Fox News, okay? 88% support from Democrats, all right? On the issue of Medicare for all, which 70% from independents, over 50% from Republicans. So you're talking about a majority of Americans that support this issue, and we can't even get a vote on that critical issue of healthcare, of providing universal healthcare in the middle of a pandemic that has killed 350,000 people, set on pace to kill at least 500,000 people within a year, and economic depression that has seen 60 million people filing for unemployment in the past 9 months. 1 in every 3 workers filing for unemployment in the last 9 months, losing their health insurance in the midst of a pandemic, losing jobs and their health insurance. And we don't think we can't get a vote on a popular policy like that with a democratically controlled House. Then when will we ever? When is the moment? To all the people that say now's not the time, what is your strategy? What is your strategy for getting us closer to Medicare for all in the next 2 years, 4 years, 10 years even? Like, what is it? What do you see? And because the people that are saying nobody has given me a distinctive, meaningful strategy, that this somehow harms. How does doing this in any way harm your strategy? How does it interfere with your strategy in any way? Like, we really need to have this debate out. And I wish that this were a busier stream. I wish that there were more people in the chat because I really wanted to engage on this issue because it's unfortunate. I just wish I had a bigger platform. I really do. I wish I had a bigger platform that I could actually impact this in some way and affect change in some way. And honestly, this has just made me feel a sense of hopelessness. Honestly, if I'm being all the way real, I have thought in the same way that Brianna Joy Gray has, said she's been thinking recently, like, maybe it's too far gone. Maybe this movement isn't what I thought it was. And maybe there is no hope in what we're trying to do with electoral politics. And honestly, I mean, I was one of the first 300 people to ever donate to AOC. Most of my social media pictures, it's a picture of me, with AOC. So yeah, so that's me, back then, right, before the force to vote and before the vote was coming up, at the time saying, that this was going to extend our timeline by decade, years or decades on Medicare for all. We weren't going to get it in this Joe Biden administration, essentially, not for the next 2 years or the next 4 years, likely. And that was a real opportunity to push it forward in a way that all the people that tell me that it would never pass. I mean, you tell me how under a Democratic Congress, a democratically controlled Congress, the Democratic Party doesn't support universal health care. If they don't have a plan for building universal health care, we should be outraged as, voters. We should be outraged, and we should not be voting for this party if they don't truly support universal health care. And you can't tell me that you truly support it if you don't get it enacted when you have total control over the Congress, the White House, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. You have to pass legislation. And if you cannot pass legislation when you control the legislative branch and the executive branch, then I'm sorry, but you don't believe in any of that legislation if you're not getting it passed. All right. So they don't believe in any of this stuff. They don't actually care about these. These are not priorities for them. And that includes a $15 minimum wage. And that was honestly like the least. I honestly thought that of everything that they weren't going to do, I thought $15 minimum wage was the one thing that Joe Biden was actually going to do, because of the way that his rhetoric during the campaign said that he likes, he's in favor of a $15 minimum wage. He was going to fight for it during the not just during the campaign, but during the debates in particular, all throughout his campaign, in the endorsement video with Bernie Sanders. It was the one concession that Bernie Sanders got when he gave up his endorsement to Joe Biden. It was essentially, Joe Biden's going to support and fight for a $15 minimum wage. And this is the opportunity. You have to do it. You have to pass a $15 minimum wage under budget reconciliation. This is the time, and their failure to do so is a signal, and should be a signal to all of us. And you heard Cenk say it himself. This is someone 5 million progressive viewers just said, "Listen, I've been telling y'all, and I'm optimistic, and I'm usually hopeful, but I don't know that I can tell you in good faith any longer if this is what they're doing. I don't think I can tell you in good faith any longer to support these people." Right? He said, "I'm all the way out." Right? So yeah, I think that we have to really question electoral politics, right? And question it. And so here's I'll play another clip of me talking about this at the time. And this is just me talking about how it's a systemic problem, right? And the problem is the system. You got to change the system, right? Systemic problems require systemic change, and changing the individuals isn't the solution. And getting new individuals in, and this is why I'm not so gung ho about the Nina Turner candidacy anymore. And you haven't seen me. I picked up the most subscribers on my channel the day that she announced her intent to run for the House of Representatives, and I picked up 10 times more subscribers than I usually pick up in a day, a month, essentially. Shoot, she got me a month's worth of subscribers in a day, and people like to hear that sort of feel good news and something to be hopeful about. And I wish I could bring you that sort of information, but I feel like it would be a waste of my time, because everybody's out there presenting this flowery view of reality, when it's like, what if the reality is that there is no hope in this system? I'm not saying there's no hope whatsoever. I believe the hope is in building up these institutions locally, building democratic institution, building workplace democracy in our housing. We did a video yesterday about queer people of color, Black, Indigenous, and other people of color in Seattle, Washington, who are they're called Queer the Land, and they bought a house they have a house for queer people to live in. That's a direct way, and it's collectively owned and operated, and it's a collective space for them as well, and it's going to be able to house 8 to 10 people, and it's just it's one house. But that's how we're going to have to do it, is to build up the institution. It's called dual power. It's what the Black socialists in America talk about, and Richard Wolff talks about when they talk about this concept of dual power, which I think I don't know, I don't remember which philosopher or whoever is the first to come up with it. I believe it honestly might be Lenin who first talked about this. But the concept of dual power is that in the wake of failing institutions, you build new institutions in their place, right? As one institution is failing, you build up another institution in its place that will take its place, right? So we just got to do the really hard work of building up the institution in its place. It's why I fight for workplace democracy and believe that that is a fundamental change that we're going to have to make. And until we make that change, we're never going to get democracy in our political system, until we have democracy in our economic system. Like, we have to be able to practice democracy in the place that we spend, the majority of adults spend the majority of their waking lives, right? Their conscious lives is in the workplace, going to work, coming home from work, right? And so we have to have democracy there if we expect people to learn how to participate in democracy and to actually have that democracy extend from our economic system and then into our political system. Whatever system you enact in your economic system, it essentially replicates itself in your political system. So, the monarchs, whoever controls the surplus, they control the society, right? And so we can continue to let a handful of people control the surplus in our workplaces, and under capitalism, to the landlords, to rent-seeking landlords to control all the, and have control a handful of people over the masses. And if we do that, then that system will always produce these same results, right? Instability, inequality, anti-democratic, institutions. And so I can't in good faith tell people to continue to spend money, especially broke people that are watching the show, are people that are struggling. Like, to tell you to go and put your money into these, campaigns, they feel good. It's like it's a little hit of dopamine. You get a little serotonin rush off of it. Like, you feel, it's instant gratification. Like, if you play video games, it's like instant gratification of you got this loot box or whatever. And it's like, you vote, and when you cast your vote, then usually days after casting your vote, or a day or the same night, sometimes you can find out if the person that you voted for won, right? So the election, they count the votes, and then you hear the results of the vote, right? And it feels like that's democracy, and it feels like you're participating in democracy at that point. But it's not real democracy, right? That's not what real democracy is, right? To just cast a vote for a person who is just a representative, and they're later going to go and expected to represent you. Hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe they'll represent us this time. It's like, it never works out that way. We need to give people more direct democracy, more direct control over their lives. That's true democracy. One person, one vote on matters that affect them. And that's not the system that we enact and instill in our economic system. We have a handful, the employer, the board of directors, they have all the power in a company. They get to have all the decision-making power over, the mass of the people. It's usually a handful of people, 10 to 12 people, a couple dozen people with control over, thousands, hundreds, thousands, and even hundreds of thousands in the case of like an Amazon or a Microsoft or a Google, right? So we got to change the system, and been trying to say this for a long time. I'll play another clip of me. Again, I know it's weird, but I'm gonna play another clip of myself from back in the day. Okay, this is from when we were talking about force the vote, saying the same things Cenk's saying now. Phone banks donated like hundreds of dollars to her campaign when I was unemployed and struggling. All right, and I have been an avid supporter of AOC's throughout her entire career. So to paint me as somehow anti-AOC would be just utterly absurd. It would be utterly absurd and just not based in fact, just completely not based in fact in any way. So I am not anti-AOC, but what I am acknowledging now, and what I'm coming to realize in this moment, is that electoral politics, the entire system, we keep on saying it's a systemic problem. And listen, we thought that the problem was, the money in politics, right? The financial structure, right? In the fundraising structure of Congress. Now, I think that it was one of the issues. And I definitely think that's why I don't think that AOC is a sellout, because she's not selling out to she's not going and taking some money from the pharmaceutical industry all of a sudden. Who are we kidding? She's not. She's absolutely not, right? She is just simply, I think what the issue is that what Kyle Kulinski says is these politicians get what he calls Washington brain, right? And I think that what it is that it's the system, right? The system and the establishment is it's such a machine that even if we put these uncorrupted politicians into office, even it turns out that it wasn't just the funding structure that was the only problem with Congress, right? The problem is that it's a really gross machine, and the establishment, there's a lot of power in that machine, and it taints people. It taints people. Being inside, it taints people. It's a lot easier to be a bomb thrower and a truth teller, a radical truth teller, when you're on the outside looking in, right? When you're fighting from the outside, right? But once people get into that system, I'm just seeing, I with AOC, the longer she's in that system, the more I'm seeing her rhetoric, changing, her willingness to accept incrementalism, her lack of urgency. Come on. All right, so I'm gonna play one more clip of me back in the force the vote argument, and just my sort of parting thoughts that I had on questioning the focus on electoralism, and what I was doing with my channel at that point. And honestly, it really shook me to my core when that force the vote movement failed. I don't care if the whole strategy ultimately failed. It was about, can the progressives, will they ever wield power, right? And that was what it was really about, and the lasting impact that it might have if they couldn't, right? And how it was a sign of things to come, right? So here's one more clip, quick one, I promise. I think that this can and will have lasting impact. I won't do this double speed because I know I already talk fast on the left, because I'll tell you, I think that it's made me, like, just for this show, I have had to completely reconsider what I'm doing here. Like, I don't know if this is what I'm going to pursue any longer. Like, I don't know if this is the right place to fight any longer, because honestly, I feel like a grifter talking about electoral politics any longer. If this is what comes of it, if this is what this machine is capable of doing, that it's capable of, of not corrupting the mind of, not corrupting in the sense of like financial, corruption, but corrupting the mind of, or brainwashing somebody like an AOC, who I truly believe in and know that she has pure intentions. I know her intentions are pure. I know she wants Medicare for all. I simply believe that she does not have the sense of urgency, that she should have for this moment. And it's going to cost us, not just in this fight, but in, this was a pivotal moment for the left, because it wasn't just about this floor vote, but it was also about teaching these progressives the power that they have and getting them to actually use that power. If you don't use that power now, when will you use the power? I hope did everybody, did we hear the clip from? Hope everyone heard that. West, you got to recognize last part when to use this power, and the time is now. This is what I'm going to pursue any longer. Like, I don't know if this is the right place to fight any longer, because honestly, I feel like a grifter talking about electoral politics any longer. If this is what comes of it, if this is what this machine is capable of doing, that it's capable of, of not corrupting the mind of, not corrupting in the sense of like financial, corruption, but corrupting the mind of, or brainwashing somebody like an AOC, who I truly believe in and know that she has pure intentions. I know her intentions are pure. I know she wants Medicare for all. I simply believe that she does not have the sense of urgency, that she should have for this moment. And it's going to cost us, not just in this fight, but this was a pivotal moment for the left, because it wasn't just about this floor vote, but it was also about teaching these progressives the power that they have and getting them to actually use that power. If you don't use that power now, when will you use the power? I hope it. All right. So that was me back then saying what Cenk is saying now about this, and I'm glad he's come around, but I just want to make it clear that this is the exact argument we were making. This is the point that we were making back then, and this is part of the same. This is just a part of the same pattern, really, and a continuation of the same pattern. And so, they weren't willing to use their power then. They're not willing to use their power now. They're not going to be willing and capable of using their power at any point. Not now when they have the block and it's small. This is when they're able to do it because of the narrow margin in the House, right? It's another important point. It's like it's about there being such a narrow margin in the House. This is a once in 100-year opportunity. And I didn't play that clip of me, but I talk about in that same video, how it's these are multiple once in essentially century opportunities and scenarios that were overlapping. And it's like the economic situation, the public health crisis, and the situation in, in Congress itself, in the House of Representatives, with there being such a narrow margin. Hasn't happened since 1880. And you have with that narrow margin, it means that you don't need so many people to be able to withhold their vote, right? The larger the margin is, the more progressives we're going to have. It's not always that there's a thin, narrow margin between the Republicans and Democrats. These are all parts of unique opportunity. And the fact that they weren't willing to exercise power then showed me all that I really needed to see. And I didn't want to, I'm afraid to come out and just destroy people's hope and say, you shouldn't have hope for this. But honestly, if I really believe it, it's like I need to stop holding back on that. I feel like, because this is what I believe. I think that electoralism and electoral politics is not a total dead end for us, but it cannot be our primary strategy on the left. And we have to start to look to building labor power. This is why I'm trying to focus on labor issues more. And hopefully you've seen it in the content that I've been doing recently, trying to focus on labor issues, and also trying to focus on cooperative efforts, right? And examples of building dual power, right? So to try to give people the hope through showing examples of other people using, dual power effectively and wielding dual power, building up institutions in the wake of these institutions that are failing us, the institution of policing, the institution, we need to replace these things. And it's not going to happen top down. The change isn't going to come top down. They just did this George Floyd Act in Congress. They just passed the George Floyd Act through the House. One, it's not going to pass through the Senate. Not going to pass through Senate, but they are, the bill gives $750 million increased funding to police so that they can use that money to investigate themselves. All right. So we're giving we're giving $750 million as an increase of policing, and calling it the George Floyd, Justice for George Floyd Act or something foolish like that. Right. So, and also like the Justice in Policing Act for 2020. Right. So, it's frustrating to me, because this is what they'll do, right? And it's shameful, really, what they'll do. And sure, there's some nice things in it, trying ending qualified immunity. There were some caveats to it. I haven't read the exact language. I don't know if it totally ends qualified immunity. It sounded like in the language that I read that it didn't totally end qualified immunity, but I can't say specifically. That bill is a long bill, and I was trying to read through the actual language of the bill, and it's not a short bill to read through. So, just frustrating, right? Corey Saylor says, why does that douchebag Joe Manchin always get what he wants? Because he's willing to shoot the hostage and hold a must-pass bill up to get what he wants. Exactly. Like, we have to be willing to. I'm sorry, but if we can't support, we have to understand that's how the power works, and we have to still be willing to support politicians, even if they use tactics like that might seemingly say delay a bill, if we know that they're delaying it for the right reasons, right? Joe Manchin is delaying this bill in holding it up and threatening to vote against it and block this bill for the wrong reasons, right? To take things away from the people who need it most in a time when they need it most, right? We're actually trying to get good things, good measures passed that will actually help people, popular policies put into this bill. But we don't have a block of progressives that are willing to do the same in the House of Representatives. We don't expect it to happen in the Senate. There's just not enough progressives in the Senate. Sadly, it's just not happening in the Senate, right? So let Joe Manchin block it all he wants. If Joe Manchin is going to block it in the Senate for dumb stuff, we'll block it in the House for proper reasons, right? And we will block it until you include a $15 minimum wage, and we can absolutely fight for that, and we can absolutely demand that of our politicians, and we should expect that of them, because we have fought to get these people elected, and they're not doing what we have demanded of them as the people that fought for them and empowered them. This is them, unfortunately turning their backs on those very people, right? And it's discouraging. It's discouraging to the entire movement when you see this happening. And this is going to have ramifications. The fact that Cenk Uygur comes out and says, listen, it's hard for him to continue to, in good faith, support, and encourage people to continue to donate to these politicians and to support these politicians when they're not, when they're showing us over and over now repeatedly, they have shown us that they are either unwilling or unable to exercise power effectively. if you think that we're going to get more moments like this, more once in 100-year pandemics and once in 100-year economic depressions, and for people to be feeling this amount of pain, if they won't respond to this kind of pain, what do you think that they're going to respond to? The scenarios are catastrophic. These are already catastrophic. What are we talking about? What worse scenarios do you want than 500,000 Americans dead in a year? In over 10 million people lost their job and their health insurance because of it. There's still, since the beginning of the pandemic, there's over 10 million more unemployed people who don't have access to their health and their employer-based health insurance anymore. And you mean to tell me that this isn't the right time, that this isn't the time that we're going to have the most people on our side and the best public support behind us? No, absolutely. So yeah. And I said it then, and it's playing out right now, that when they didn't force the vote, it showed me all I needed to see, that they were unwilling to exercise power. And here it is again, perfect example yet again, and they're unwilling to do it. And yeah, that's my thoughts on that. Do we got some comments we want to flip through? Yeah. Corey Saylor says you have to be willing to shoot the hostage. Yeah, cold but true. That's how you use power in politics. You have to be able to, you have to be willing to, it's called leverage, and you got to leverage your vote, you got to know how to leverage and use your leverage and leverage your vote. Right. And so that's how it works. And this is what we were talking about during the primary. We were like, listen, and even up in the general, we were saying you still have to be willing, even when it was Joe Biden against Donald Trump, you still got to be willing to go out there and to threaten. That's why they cater to the moderates and the conservatives. And how are we going to get these independents? Because the independents have shown that they're willing to vote for the other people, right? Or to not vote, So you got to show that you're willing to vote, not for Donald Trump, but I voted for Howie Hawkins. I voted third party, and I made videos and I said why I could not vote for Joe Biden, right? And I'm in Massachusetts, whatever, you can caveat it however you want. But I really just think that we had to show across the board that we were just willing across the board to just not vote for Joe Biden. Joe Biden won by tens of thousands of vote, just it's not that many. It's like tens of thousands, not 100,000, tens of thousands of votes in a handful of states. And that's what Joe Biden, won by. He eked out a victory against one of the most unpopular presidents, or possibly the most unpopular president in the history of the United States, and could barely eke out a victory in the middle of public health crisis and economic catastrophe. And we still just barely eked out a victory. And he needed every vote that he could get. And we absolutely should have demanded something for our vote back then, to say you must at least actually go on record and say that you're going to support these things and support a list of truly the executive actions were the things that mattered most, was because then he's got no excuse on things that weren't executive actions. So we should have had a list of executive actions that he had committed to on day one and been able to hold him to that. And, even then, do we trust Joe Biden? Nah, but if he at least made those concessions, yeah, I would have given up my vote for that. Honestly, I would have given up my vote if they had gotten some real concessions, true concessions on minimum wage. And he actually agreed to that and had a plan laid out for how it was going to happen. And, said, come on, you can't be telling me that you believe in something. When during Joe Biden's campaign, did he say, did he run on respecting the Senate parliamentarian? At what point, on which famous Joe Biden speech during the campaign do you remember him talking about how his number one priority when he gets into power is to respect the procedures of the Senate parliamentarian? Do you ever remember that? No, nobody remembers that, because it never happened. All right. So what he talked about was, we're going to support a $15 minimum wage, and we believe in, universal healthcare, even though they wouldn't say single payer or Medicare for all. They claim universal healthcare. Oh, they want everybody to have healthcare as a human right. They use that rhetoric, but they don't actually mean it. They don't back it up with any policy. And that's, that was the fear that we all had, and we expressed back then, especially, me trying to talk to, to Black folks in the Black community. I played clips of Breonna Joy Gray, her interview with Tim Black, and where she talked about how we are, the Black vote they've been politically captured by the Democratic Party, and Black voters vote in such overwhelming numbers for the Democratic Party. even though the Democratic Party repeatedly gives us nothing back in return for our vote. They just keep on, kicking the can down the road, and unfortunately we're the can. And not just black folks, but all poor folks, right? All marginalized folks, all working class folks. They just continue. They want to cater to the party of the corporations, and they just want to have the certain set of. It's two corporate parties. They're battling for different sets of corporations, right? The Democrats want the Silicon Valley liberal corporations, and the Republicans want all the fossil fuel pharmaceuticals, all the evil, conservative industries, and they get all those. And then it's just a battle of the two, corporate elite, the two sets of different corporate elites, and they'll play games and use different little culture war tactics to sort of distract people and to try to divide us up on stupid issues that aren't really, valuable discussions to be had when people are suffering the way that they're suffering, and in this country and around the world right now. We have better discussions to be had. But they get us to focus on the stupid stuff as a distraction instead of focusing on, holding them to account and talking about real solutions to these problems. And this was I hope this is a wake up moment for folks in Cenk's audience. And I was a TYT fan. TYT helped me cross over into where I am politically, and I, shout out to them for that. And I met Cenk. I shook his hand. I went to an event that he went to. He spoke at Harvard when they first came up with the idea to form the Justice Democrats. I was at that event at Harvard that Cenk has cited as the moment that he realized that he needed to start Justice Democrats, which ultimately went on to found, to help get all of these progressives elected into Congress. Then, it was because he saw the response of the overwhelming response that he got from our community here when he came out here, and we stayed after to have a discussion with him, and I got to talk to him, and they helped me along in my political path. And so I'm not trying to shit all over TYT or anything like that. I think that they are a step along the way, and unfortunately I just think that they deserve criticism like any other outlet. They have power and they deserve criticism, and we should criticize them when they're not on the right side of history. And recently they've been slipping up just repeatedly over and over again. And so all right. So Corey Taylor says, I want to give Cenk credit for coming around at least, although he certainly owes Jimmy a conversation. I don't think that he owes Jimmy Dore anything, because I don't care about Jimmy Dore, the person. I don't like Jimmy Dore, personally. He's shown what he's capable of, and it's destructive to our movement. I mean, what Jimmy Dore did with the Boogaloo Boys, there's no forgiveness for that. All right, there's no forgiveness. I don't care. Sure, there is forgiveness. There's redemption. You can be forgiven when you show me that you're willing to do better than that, to move forward. You're doing better than that. Sure, there's forgiveness then, but it's not just like we just forgive him because he's a nice guy. We like him. He's a funny guy, so we just forget. No, sorry. You gotta do the actual work and show me that you're not going to do stupid shit that's going to endanger our movement. All right. So, what he did, deplatforming socialists and leftists and black leftists like Jamal Thomas and the dude from the World Socialist website that he deplatformed, essentially, put him under the paywall, hid him behind the paywall, if at all. It was so hard to find clips of it while platforming a Boogaloo Boy. And when I say platforming, I mean giving an unchallenged platform to, right? Just letting him have your platform unchallenged, right? And that's what he did. And it was dangerous because the tactics of the Boogaloo Boys they endanger our movement because they're literally violent, dangerous tactics that put people's lives at risk. And so do not support Jimmy Dore, and nobody owes Jimmy Dore anything. You can support policy and without having to get down into the personality stuff. And I don't care about the personalities. And honestly, these things should be bigger than any one person. And what we're talking about is much bigger than Jimmy Dore, much greater than Jimmy Dore. And so, I just don't care about where Jimmy Dore comes down on this issue. There were many other people pushing this issue. Sure, Jimmy Dore gets credit for coming up with the initial idea, but everything that he did after that, was counterproductive, honestly, to helping to push the movement forward. So he's a part of why it exists. He's also a part of why it failed, and why it failed, and people should acknowledge that as well. His brand of politics, the scorched earth, the toxicity, it doesn't play well for coalition building, and that's what you need to do to actually win. And so Cenk doesn't owe Jimmy anything. He owes all of the people in his community, his supporters, the people that fund TYT, the grassroots movements. That's who he owes an apology to, for letting them down. in that. So Tammy says, oh yeah, people can definitely change and learn. So I'm glad he's come around to understanding the strategy, but he definitely needs to bring up how this is exactly what Force the Vote was about. And Dore wasn't wrong about that. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm totally, cool with that. Tammy says TYT isn't all bad. It's a great starting point for people moving left. I agree. I think that it still serves a purpose. They're the largest network in it, what they built, it paves the way for folks like me to, I don't think that I exist if TYT doesn't exist. Let me be real. Okay. I don't think that this show ever exists if TYT doesn't exist. Like I came up out of TYT. All right. So if you support folks like me, you're indirectly supporting what TYT's, the work that TYT has done. So, and I'm not a current viewer of them though. What Up America says, you can't persuade someone by screaming at them. You have to persuade them by suspending their disposition and suggesting a plan. That's how you motivate politicians. Yeah, and we were coming with the plan, and I know What Up America was on the right side of history on that. And I am not happy that we are being proven correct. I was really hoping that they were going to prove us wrong, to be honest. Shout out to What Up, and shout out to everyone who's in the comments and chat, and I see you all. So shout out to everyone for chatting here. Corey Saylor says, as I said, I want to give Cenk credit for finally getting it right, but we'll see if he puts his money where his mouth is come the midterms. Yeah, that will be a very interesting to watch and see if they're still doing, pushing everybody and all their supporters into electoral politics. Because I'm talking about, like, I was unemployed and spending hundreds and thousands of dollars supporting these politicians, seriously, like that's like the, scraping by and using that money because I considered it an investment, right? It was an investment and I expected a return on my investment. And to be honest, I don't feel like I've gotten much, if any, return on that investment. And that's the part where I get frustrated. Yeah, anyone who donates expects a return on their investment, whether they're the wealthy donors or these us grassroots individual donors. And we were expecting something for this. And if he continues to funnel people towards electoralism and not into labor movements and, trying to think about a systemic critique, honestly. And that's the unfortunate problem with capitalists. And Cenk is an avowed capitalist. And this is the problem with capitalists, is that they don't see a problem with the system of capitalism, and the problems that we're talking about are inherent to the system of capitalism. These issues that we're talking about, we've lost control over our democracy because of capitalism, because of the way that capitalism, enables the wealthiest amongst us to have outsized power in society and to wield that power in our political system, right? Because they take all the surplus of the masses of people, they take the surplus from their labor, they sit on their behinds. Jeff Bezos, from 2009, I think Zuckerberg had like 2 billion in 2009. I just retweeted somebody who said like Zuckerberg had like 2 billion in 2009, and 2020 or 2021 he has like 160 billion, and Jeff Bezos had a few billion in 2009. By now he has like 180 billion, and the minimum wage in 2009 was $7.25, and the minimum wage in 2021 $7.25. All right. So while these billionaires have only gotten richer, the poor just stay poor. All right. And honestly are able to buy less and less because of the way that inflation works. So it's even worse than it seems at the outset. So all right. So Hassan Mendoza says all of the establishment Republicans and Democrats are part of the deep state. The progressive Democrats are allowed to strongly oppose establishment Republicans, but they can't oppose Dems. Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing, is that the party politics, it incentivizes these people to go along with these establishment politicians and to not contest them. And you had AOC when she was coming into power. There's a famous clip of her sitting down in a little diner talking with like Alexandra Rojas from Justice Democrats and Chakrabarty, I forget his first name, and our campaign manager, and it's saying that if she was willing to be a one-term congressperson if it meant having to buck the establishment and fight against and go against the Democratic Party establishment. But unfortunately, she got there and changed her tune, very quickly changed her tune. So whatever's happening behind the scenes that we can't see, that's happening behind closed doors, those are powerful forces that are acting on these people. And it's really amazing what Bernie Sanders has done for his whole career, considering how corrosive these institutions are. So they are really good at criticizing Republicans, not good at all at criticizing their own party and standing up to their own party, honestly, because it's really easy to stand up to Republicans. It's honestly all performative at this point when you stand up to Republicans. What really matters is, are you willing to stand up to your party when the time comes? Because that's where you actually have power that you can wield, right? You're not going to change the mind of Republicans. You can absolutely shift the policy in the Democratic Party to the left, absolutely, because they have enough of a block of progressive Congress people, and we fought tooth and nail to get those people elected, and all we're asking for is something in return for all of the work that we've done, and that's millions of people in these grassroots movements. Hassan Mendoza says, if the progressives oppose establishment Dems too strongly, they are afraid that the establishment will try to make them lose their jobs. They are scared of the deep state. The problem is with that line of reasoning is that it really doesn't threaten their jobs, because they're wildly popular. These people, look at AOC in her district. She is wildly popular. They have the support of the people. That's what we've been saying the whole time. We always used to say, they've got the money, we've got the people. That's the name of a book that was written about this movement by Ryan Grimm that focused on AOC. It's called We've Got People. We've got the people. And that's the whole idea. That was the slogan that they kept saying. They've got the money, we've got the people, right? And so we've got the people behind us. We have the support of the people. We're talking about supporting popular policies. $15 minimum wage. We showed all the numbers. It's 61% popularity over the whole country. Republicans, independents, Democrats, 61% popularity. So, majority of people, it benefits you to support these policies. So it only stands to benefit them. If you go against them, you only got 49% of people that you might be able to get, when you go against it. All right. So, 39%, versus 61%, if you're in favor of it. Right. So, and amongst Democrats, it's like 88, it was like 87 or something percent in favor of increasing the $15 minimum wage through budget reconciliation. Right. So these are wildly popular ideas in the party, and they're still the people in power are unwilling to exercise the will of the people and to represent their constituents. And so, yeah, Hassan Mendoza goes on to say the squad is afraid of Biden, Schumer, Pelosi, and Harris because, again, they are part of the deep state. I don't care about the whole, when you say deep state, I think you lose some people because it sounds a little conspiracy theory-ish, but honestly, like, I understand what you mean. And I know what you're talking about, this concept of the deep state and this ingrained establishment. And I think that that's just a lighter word that doesn't rub people's senses the wrong way and turn that switch for people. But we mean the same things, and the national security sort of deep state and the people that are just in these status quo in the establishment, politics. All right. So Corey Saylor says, I do believe these progressives mean well, they just don't know how to use power. Yeah. And I think it's that the whole system is set up to disincentivize them from using power is I think the key point is that it's not just like they don't know, and if we find another politician that maybe they'll know how to use the power. I just simply think that we do not have a true strategy on the left about how to exercise our power once we made it to power. How are we actually going to get these people to actually exercise the power? What did it look like? And we didn't have a real strategy around that, and they absolutely don't have a strategy around that. Corey Seller says, you say deep state enough to make me think you're into conspiracies, but you ain't wrong about progressives. Yeah, see, Corey says, if you keep talking about deep state, like, language matters, right? And the way that we talk about issues matter. And so to talk about the deep state, it's just that stuff has been really deeply co-opted by no pun intended, by the Republican Party as well. So Hassan Mendoza says, I think I have figured out why the progressive Democrats won't oppose the establishment Democrats in a strong way. This is going to sound like a conspiracy theory. Corey Saylor says AOC means well, but she got eaten by swamp monsters. You don't change the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party changes you essentially. But and that's the thing. I just don't. I think that when we talk about reforming the Democratic Party, it was a strategy I initially I got behind and I supported, and I tried to employ that strategy. It's a two-party system. We're gonna have to take over one of the parties. But what if the whole system is just too far gone and there's nothing that we can do to change that system? But what we can do is to try to, build power up through, and build up our institutions to build power, democratic power. Essentially, look at what Mondragon did. And they have a whole city that's operating democratically, essentially, in Mondragon through these collective cooperative of worker cooperatives and democratically controlled. And we can start to build up, and they have their own universities and school system and police system. And, we're just going to have to build things up that way and do the work that way. Unfortunately, build up, democratic media and just rebuild these institutions, as these other ones have failed the people, and they're failing institutions, and they're crumbling institutions, that people are losing faith in the mainstream media and other, so-called democratic institutions in our society. So Hassan Mendoza says, oh, okay. Corey Shaler says, whenever I think of AOC, you were the chosen one. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like she was supposed to be our beacon of hope there. And honestly, it was a litmus test to see, is it possible? Is it possible to do this? Or is the system really just too far gone and corrupted? Because I don't think these are bad people. I met her personally before anyone knew who AOC really was. When a handful of people, a few thousand people knew AOC, I met AOC and got to talk to her for a long stretch of time, because she didn't have a million people lined up to see her, because nobody knew who AOC was. It was a really small, private event or whatever. Not private, it was open to the public, but nobody showed up because AOC wasn't anybody at that point, right? And I showed up as a supporter and got to talk to her for about 15-20 minutes. We sat there and talked, and we talked about the student loan debt cancellation, and I pushed her on fighting for student loan debt cancellation because it wasn't in her platform yet. She said that she was going to be talking to Stephanie Kelton, and lo and behold, she talked to her the next week, and she added it to her platform. Not that I think that I got her to do that, but I think that she heard from enough people around and saw that was something that was important to folks. But what did they get? Did they get student loan debt cancellation or anything close to it? Sorry, but no. With the support for Biden, what did that get us? At best, we might get $10,000 worth of student loan debt cancellation. Like, come on. So. Anywho, I won't go off on a tangent. Sorry. Musicum, what's up, Musicum? Good to see you here. Musicum says, hey, I finally catch a live stream. Cenk, more like stank. Yes, I like Cenk. Don't. No, I mean, as a person, I think he's useful to the left, and he serves a purpose on the left. And let's not be no, I don't care. Musicum says, listen, all I know. Listen, all I know is Cuomo sucks. Yeah, I think we can all agree to that. Cuomo sucks. Biden sucks. And sadly, the Democratic Party, writ large sucks. Musicum 22 says, so many people are naive with regard to this presidential administration. Yeah, we talk about that on this show all the time, right? Musicum says, still haven't seen an episode of Jimmy Dore since his Boogaloo Bum debacle. And that's the other thing about what Musicum's last comment about, people are just being, are essentially naive. I don't think they're totally naive. People are apolitical. They're checked out. They're overworked, and they don't have the time to investigate these issues deeply. And we're a privileged bunch that get to, spend our time and are focused on these issues and politics in general. But I think that it's really that, these are the things that we talk about, and we talked about before the election, and said this is why we weren't really hopeful about the Biden election. And you can check the tape, right? Check the receipts. We've been saying this all along, and I wished and I wanted him to prove me wrong. I was hoping that Biden would prove me wrong, but sadly, it just doesn't look like he's going to. And it's just what we said and what we expected. And unfortunately, it's everything that the Trump presidency was giving us, without the mass protests, without the people outrage, without the mass outrage and the people in the streets protesting, because people just kind of don't pay attention, because there's not the mean tweets and the really terrible rhetoric, but he's doing all the same policies. He's set to give fewer people stimulus. Sorry, I'm not going to call them stimulus checks, survival checks. He's giving fewer people survival checks than Donald Trump gave. All right. This bill is set to give fewer people. It caps it at $80,000 income instead of $100,000 or $125,000 income for individual filers. So this thing is you're giving less money than Donald Trump gave overall, right? Because he gave the first he gave $1,200, and then he gave another $600, right? So overall, Donald Trump gave $1,800. Sure, you can call it two bills, whatever you want, but $1,800 went out to people with Trump's name on it, and you're giving less money, $1,400 instead of so you're giving less money than Trump did, and to less people. And I mean, you had one job to do, which was be better than Trump. Everybody told me anybody would be better than Trump, right? Anybody would be better than Trump. Biden would be better than Trump. I mean, you know who I fought for Bernie tooth and nail. We got so damn close, and we would have canceled student loan debt. We wouldn't be quibbling about this $15 minimum wage. This thing would already be in there, and this bill would already be passed. All right. If we have Bernie Sanders, in power, and but the system is so well designed to keep people from that, like that from ever taking power, right? So Noam Chomsky tried to warn us. He was like, do y'all seriously, do leftists really believe that they're going to let Bernie Sanders win this primary election under any circumstances? Do they actually believe that? And he just, he tried to warn us that there was under no circumstances would the Democratic Party allow Bernie Sanders to win that primary. And they were going to do all kinds of gross undemocratic tactics, like use super delegates in the second round of voting to prevent him from taking power, right? From winning the nomination. Hassan Mendoza says, I'm an older person. I have off and on watched the Democratic Party and how over the past 40 plus years, different groups have tried to change the Democratic Party and make them work for the working class. Yeah, so Hassan Mendoza has seen this, play out over and over at this point. I'm 34 years old, and I've seen it in my short, slightly shorter lifetime. I've seen it played out in 3 decades the same way over and over and over. In 40 years, every politician and every group that has tried to take the party back has failed. Most of the time, the establishment has either destroyed or co-opted most progressives. I think electoral politics will not be the place for the left to succeed. It has to be through the labor movement. Yeah, I think that the labor movement, absolutely. I think the labor movement and through, building workplace democracy, I think that's the real fundamental change, because the labor movement is more about, still keeping us within capitalist structures that all the labor movement stands to do, right? And this is why I support the labor movement, but I do not think that the labor movement is the means to the ends or whatever, right? Or however they say that, right? So I don't think it should be our end goal, because the problem with the labor movement is it still leaves us with the same system, in place that creates all the tensions of capitalism, right? Where you have the employer class constantly fighting against the employee class, and you're constantly having to battle it out with each other. The employer class, the board of directors, the employer, the major shareholders, they all want to extract as much from the working people and the workers as they can. The employee class, they want to get as much from them while paying them as little as possible so that they can extract as much profit from them, right? And the workers, the employees, they all want to extract as much from the employer as they can, right? Through benefits, more time off, better benefits, things like that, right? So we're constantly under a capitalist system. There's this inherent tension in the system that requires, by its very nature, and that's what creates the instability in the system, to be honest. That's what leads to so much instability, is this constant tension and this constant fight and give and take that we have to have between these two people. Why leave a system in place that pits these two groups of people against each other? We have to replace that system with a system by which there is no employer and employee class. We need to dismantle that institution of we replaced master and slave with employer and employee, and it keeps so many of those problems still intact. And so if we're really talking about fundamental change and sustainable change, what we really need to be talking about is changing that system of employer employee that creates all the tension. We need to make every worker inside of an institution give workers the actual true ownership over the means of production, a democratic say in their workplaces, and get rid of that employer employee class and make it all one. Every employee is also the employer in a democratic workplace. All right, everybody says they want to be their own boss. That's everybody's dream, to someday grow up and be their own boss, right? Nobody wants to be bossed over. Nobody really wants to be bossed over. You want to have some control, some self-determination, and that's all that we're really arguing in favor of, right? Is people having self-determination, democracy. If we really believe in democracy, why do we suspend democracy in the place where the majority of us spend the majority of the waking hours of our lives, in our workplaces, right? We wouldn't suspend democracy if we truly believed in it. Let's not suspend it there. And that's what we really got to replace systems. We can't just, in the labor movement, while great, all it stands to do is to still incorporate us into that same, and indoctrinate us into that same system, and to get us to sort of still accept that we're going to have to constantly have this, we're going to have to go through unions and build unions. And why do it indirectly through unions and then having to battle with these people when we're the ones that are producing all the value, and the workers are the ones who produce all the value? If they want to work, they can work, and we'll all work together and we'll all produce the value. And they're not going to be a handful of people, the wealthiest amongst us, that get to sit on their butts and make money, doing nothing, billions of dollars more than other people. There's 26 billionaires in the world own as much wealth as the bottom 3.5 billion people in the world, and it's something like three billionaires in the United States own as much wealth as the bottom half of all people, the bottom 100 and, like, what is it, 65 million people in the country. They three people own more wealth than the bottom 165 million people, and we think that we should allow this system to continue. I'm sorry, but we had unions and we had a labor movement, and if we leave the system of capitalism in place, we leave all the incentive and all the means there for those same people that we are trying to take this power from. We leave them with all the incentive and all the means to go back and to fight, to undo every gain that we make and to take it all back from us. So even just supporting the labor movement, while I think, yes, we must support the labor movement and we must focus on, grassroots movements, labor movements. I absolutely believe so. I believe that we have to wield collective power there. I do believe that we also have to simultaneously be building power and building dual power through building up democratic institutions. And that means democratic workplaces, democracy in our housing, and so on and so forth. What if America says it's like they are perpetually averse to positive change? Yeah, I'd say so. Musicum says I changed my party affiliation to Green. Yeah, sadly, I just and I wish, but even the Green Party and the system is just so set up against third parties. Our system is so rotten to its core that it's a two-party system, and I don't know that we're ever going to be able to change it. I hope, I wish, I pray that we can change it to a multi-party system, and have like a parliamentary system instead of this arcane House and Senate and unrepresentative democracy. So I hope so. Musicum 22 says I will not be voting for a Democrat in the near future. Yeah, I just think that we have to put our time, our energy, and our money into different avenues than electoral politics at this stage. I think that it's in supporting democratic workplaces like what we're doing here. I really, truly, genuinely believe that is the fight that matters. And that's why I do this. If I didn't think that this is what matters, I'd go back to being a software engineer, making six figures and instead of, scraping by, and, surviving on unemployment checks, essentially. So Corey Saylor says Manchin knows what power he has and knows how to use it. Progressives need to take notes. Yeah, exactly. Yep. We got to be willing to do the same things that these other folks are willing to do. Musicum 22 says Biden has been so underwhelming. I think Dems are in danger of losing power in 2022 and even lose in 2024. All because what again? Yeah, this is absolutely. If they don't pass $15 minimum wage, I do not see how in a million years the Democrats maintain control over the House, the Senate, in 2022 and the White House in 2024. If they don't pass a $15 minimum wage, I don't think they're going to pass anything. If they don't pass the $15 minimum wage now, I don't believe they're going to pass anything. Hear me now, quote me later. We'll be playing clips of me playing clips of old me, in a year from now. I'll be having to play back clips of this, me saying the same things, unfortunately, just that's my prediction. Sadly, I don't, and I'm not in the business predictions, and nobody can really predict the future. And I really hope that they prove me wrong. I hope and I pray that they prove me wrong, but I just don't think they're going to, sadly. And I think that if we continue to invest our time, our energy, our money into electoral politics, we will continue to be let down and disappointed. And we're going to have to get real serious about building up our movements, doing what we're doing here, and to all of our supporters and folks that are helping us to build that movement, trust and believe that you are a part of that movement. And we are trying to build towards a real solution to the problem of capitalism. And it's through building socialist enterprises, democratic and, building, extending democracy into our economic system. Musicum 22 says they got the money, we got the suckers. I mean, people. Yeah, exactly. Musicum 22 says the term deep state has been used for years. It's just been seen as due to the Trump presidency, seen as like conspiratorial due to the Trump presidency. But the term has been around for years, and it used to be the left wing that used it more, talking about the deep state, because we criticize the national security state, and there absolutely is. I mean, I believe in the concept of that there is the concept of a deep state. I just think that when you start to talk about, you use the language deep state, you start to lose people, and people it starts to ring like as a conspiracy theory. Really, there are ways to talk about those things that you don't have to use words and terms like deep state that sound like all conspiratorial. Oh, there's a deep state, a secret cabal of people. No, just talk about how it's the system itself, and who, no matter what it's what you want to call it, it's capitalism. The system of capitalism is the inherent problem here, and that's the real system that we're going to need to change if we're talking about changing all of these other things, because we're just never going to have actual democratic control over our political system until we have democratic control over our economic system. The people who control our economic system are the same people that are controlling our political system through their massive donations, and the wealthy. Michael Bloomberg can just pop up and just have a credible run for president because he's a billionaire. No, he doesn't have to have a damn good idea in his brain, but he's a billionaire, so he can do it, right? So that's the problem, and the problem is the way that the system's been structured, and we're just gonna have to build a new structure. All right. Musicum22 says, if our antitrust laws were enforced, it would be different. Yeah, but unfortunately, they can't be forced because the wealthy and the employer class has used the money that they extract from the working class people. The profits that they extract, they then take that money and they turn around and they invest it in by bribing our politicians, legally bribing our politicians through their campaign donations, infinite campaign donations that they can make through super PACs, and they are allowed to buy our politicians essentially, and so they fight to undo all of those antitrust and to weaken those antitrust laws. And so we can fight for antitrust laws to be put in place, but that doesn't change the underlying system of capitalism that will inherently and just always perpetually bring us back to this point where they will undo all the gains that we make, as long as we leave the people in with the power and the means and the incentive to undo all of the things that we're doing. Then they're going to just keep undoing it. So we got to change the system. We got to get real serious about changing the system, and we got to know what that means, what that looks like. And that's why I talk very specifically about building workplace democracy, because it's relevant, and I try to draw everything back to that, because I really do think it's the fundamental change we need to make if we're serious about all these other problems that we're trying to solve. I just don't think that we have a real path to solving them until we fix this underlying problem. The system of capitalism must be uprooted and changed, and we'll never gain equity and equality and justice and liberty under a capitalist system that is inherently exploitative. All right. Melon Lord says, avoid sounding like you watch Alex Jones. LOL. Yeah, good point, Melon Lord. Great to see you, Melon. Thanks so much to Melon for supporting our show. Melon Lord says it's a one-party monster with two faces. Absolutely agree with you there, Melon. We're talking about it's one corporate party that we're really talking about. And they're just two sides of the same coin. What Up America says, you have to sell the business to the workers exclusively. Exactly. And it's about worker ownership, but not just worker ownership, because you can have worker ownership, but then still have anti-democratic controls in place. You got to have worker self-directed enterprises, even more specifically and importantly, because there are capitalist essentially enterprises that still have an employer class, and there's still a handful of people that make decisions, but the workers technically just stand to gain the profits and the sort of the profits of it, but sharing the profits. They share in the profits, right? Because you can have what I mean by that is that what you're saying is correct. Actually, you mean full worker ownership. Workers have, and you said that you have to sell the business to the workers exclusively. There you go. That perfect. You said it correct. I'm sorry. What up? I misread when I first said it. And so yes, workers must own it exclusively, because what happens often is that there are worker owned enterprises that are technically worker owned because 50 workers have over 51% of the shares of the business, but they still have, there's still outsized power in the hands of a handful of people who, just some other handful of people that aren't workers hold like 49% of the shares. And that's still outsized power for those people. So you can't have that outsized power. You have to have democracy, one worker, one vote, all major decisions. And so, yes, you have to have, exclusively workers controlling the means of production. And because whoever controls the means of production controls the political system as well. When it was kings and queens under monarchy, it was lords under feudalism, it was the masters under slavery, and it's the employers under capitalism. All right. Any other comments? Yeah. Okay. Melon Lord says, I like Kamali's nails. Thank you very much, Melon Lord. I really like this color. Yeah, I think it's a nice color. Kind of goes with the My Hero poster back there a bit too. So yeah, thank you very much. I do it myself. Do it myself, and I'm pretty darn good at them, if I do say so myself. I mean, it's a really good nail job. It's super close up there. I don't know if it'll focus in. Yeah, there you go. All right. Hit the like button if you haven't done so already. Hit the like button, subscribe down below. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, share this out on social media. If wherever you're active, please help us grow the channel. We are a small independent left-wing media channel, and we just do not get the YouTube algorithm does not like us very much. All right. And so it is very hard to grow this channel. And so Musicum22 says, in all seriousness, I enjoy this channel. Thank you so much. Really, really appreciate that. And I deeply appreciate that. When we have these conversations, I'm trying to bring an energy to it while also recognizing that I feel deeply discouraged by some of this, some of the content that we cover here. And it's really, sometimes it's discouraging stuff. And so I'm glad that we can, talk about these really difficult issues together and process these things together and try to think about a sensible way forward from here together collectively. Right. So that's what this is all about. I talked about it in my recent live stream. I want to start to give a microphone to the people, in our community and in our audience more, doing a call-in show and also allowing people to join the live stream, on video as well. So, just trying to democratize our media even more than we are already doing and trying to do. So, Musicum says it's chill and not heavy the way other channels are. Yeah, and I just said, I'm a little heavy, but we're being heavy today, right? A little heavy, but I wish I was funnier, but we got Kwame on sometimes. Tammy's funny, but she won't. She hasn't quite broken her sense of stage fright just yet. So, but Tammy's the humor at Radical Democracy. She's the humorous one here. So and so I wish I were funnier. I loved Michael Brooks and missed the hell out of Michael Brooks because he was a funny dude who had such a great left perspective, and I wish I could be as funny. Tim Black's pretty really good. Obviously I'm biased. I work help edit videos for Tim Black, and he's a funny dude too. He's a stand-up comedian, and I think he brings some good humor to his shows as well. So I wish I was a little funnier. I wish I could be a little funnier, but maybe I'll get some of that back over time. Maybe I'll get back to that. I used to be a little bit more lighthearted. System wears you down. All right. So it's usually more fun when Kwame's on though, for sure. From Race Fist Media. He's a fun fella. Love having him on. Melon Lord says Melon Lord is a reference to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Oh, should I know that? How did I not know that? Okay, I know, but that's the kind of Lord I am, the cartoon watching kind. I love Avatar: The Last Airbender. And Tammy says, yes, Toph, LOL. And Melon Lord says, Tammy knows. Now I love you. I'm trying to remember what Melon Lord was.
Puts on a melon on her head and she just says, I am the melon lord.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. See, I didn't remember that part. Yeah. Tammy's pointing out. See, this is why we need Tammy on the mic on the 1s and 2s. All right. Because yes, we watched all of Avatar: The Last Airbender together. I did a little cosplay test of Avatar Aang, so I'll have to show that off at some point. And Tammy's Katara. So we'll have to do some sort of fundraiser or something. If we get enough donations, we'll cosplay do a whole cosplay episode as Avatar Aang and Katara while we bring you the news of the day. All right. If we'll figure out an excuse to make that happen.
Cosplay pics on if you donate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like, yeah, we'll send you our cosplay pics if you donate to the channel. If you sign up to become a recurring member, we will send you our cosplay pics. What's that? They're PG. Don't worry. Nothing R-rated or X-rated. For that, you're gonna have to pay a whole lot more. You'll have to see we got our $69 tier. Maybe for the $69 a month tier, maybe you get something a little spicier. All right. Maybe you get something a little spicier. Don't hold me to that right now. All right. And 18 plus only, obviously, 18 plus only, obviously. All right. So, Melon Lord says, so cute. Yes. It's awesome. All right. So yeah. So thank you so much to everyone for supporting and for hanging out with us today, chatting. Really appreciate it. Love the chat. Love everyone that joined us in the chat. Shout out to What Up. Oh, big shout out to What Up for donating $4 on coffee. Thank you so much, comrade. Deeply appreciate you as always. I can't thank you enough. So seriously, What Up America, for those that aren't familiar, we, just Owen and deeply grateful for What Up America and their contributions to the show and our community. They produced the intro song for the show. I didn't play it at the top of this. I usually don't play it at the top of the live segments because I try to keep them shorter, even though I ran way over on this. But What Up did that you can find them on SoundCloud at their Plasmon on SoundCloud, and I believe they're on Facebook as well, and they do amazing work. And listen to the intro song on any live episode that we play that intro song. They did that entirely. Like, they made the beat, they got all the the speakers, they laid it over. I mean, they produced the whole track. It's amazing. I love it. Every time I hear it, I get so it's like my when I'm get pumped up to that music and stuff. That's how I get ready to take on the news of the day. So shout out to What Up America for their amazing work on that. So Melon Lord says, I really hope this show grows and you keep up with it. You do a great job. I've been talking it up wherever I can. Thank you so much, Melon Lord. I deeply appreciate that. And this is what I want to do. And I believe in this. And I believe that what we're doing here is truly vital. And honestly, the more that I see of, what sort of where the left is right now, and sort of still, with the one foot in electoral politics. And I'm not completely abandoning electoral politics completely, but I do think that what we're doing here and talking about and pushing and advocating for workplace democracy, I think that is vital work. And I think that the generation of folks that are doing it right now, it's an older generation of folks, and we really need to take up the mantle from them, sort of have them pass the baton, because we can't expect them to do this endlessly and to work until they're dead, trying to carry this message. But look at Noam Chomsky, my guy is not getting any younger. And so, and folks like economist Richard Wolff, we gotta take up the mantle from these folks in Cornell West and do the work that they've been doing and so graciously and effectively for so long. And we've got a long way to go before we're as effective at messaging as folks like that are, but we certainly have to, this is how we do that work. And I absolutely intend to stick with it and to continue to do this work, because I do believe that it is vital work that what we're talking about here, and pushing this, advocating for workplace democracy on the left, and more democratic, democratic socialism and internationalist movements, and what our stance on foreign policy. I just think that this is really important work that we're doing here, and it's platforming people in our community. We've had some really great discussion with members of our communities and making sure that we give platform to these people, folks like yourself as well, to be heard. And so we want to continue to do that and not lose sight of that, and really build the institution up, and not just say it performatively, but build new institutions that uphold those values, right? And reasonably can continue to uphold and sustain those values. And that's can only be done with true democracy. And we plan to extend that as far and wide as we can, even into our community as well. What Up America says, you rock, Kamali. Thanks. Keep it up, G. Thank you so much, What Up. Really, really deeply appreciate you and everything you do. You absolutely rock too, comrade. Absolutely. Appreciate you. Nothing but love. All right. So that's it. All right. Well, thank you to everyone for joining us tonight. We're going to wrap up there. Appreciate you all. Donate, like, subscribe, share if you haven't already. And if you can afford it, please support the platform, support our show for as low as $1 a month, or you can make a one-time donation over on coffee.com/radical democracy. Links are in the description box below. You can also find us on Patreon if you're already on there, patreon.com/radical democracy. You can find us there as well, as low as $1 a month. If you sign up for $5 or more, you'll get access to our Discord server. It requires some work to just sort of be in there and spend our energy in there. So, that's why we make it a price tier kind of thing. But, but you can make suggestions about content you want to see covered on the show. And we've covered plenty of stories that were suggested by the community, and we just talk in there and chat and, whatever's on our mind as well. So please join us over there if you can afford to do so. And if you can't afford to do so, just support by sharing this out. All right. Thanks so much to everyone for being here tonight.